that's working, which it is. All right, so I'm going to say good luck and turn it over to the judges.
Thank you, Dr. Cosgrove. Good evening. Welcome. I'm Karen Milton from New York. I'm currently the Chief of Staff to the Inspector General for the Metropolitan Transportation Authority. That's the state agency that oversees the New York City and greater New York metropolitan area transportation system. Prior to that, I was the circuit executive for the Second Circuit, overseeing the 13 federal courts in the states of New York, Vermont, and Connecticut, where, believe it or not, we actually talked a lot about habeas corpus. So I'm really anxious to have a conversation with you about the Great Writ. Right now, I'm going to turn it back to my fellow judges and ask them to introduce themselves. Then when they finish, I'm going to ask each of you to introduce yourselves and your teacher. Thanks so much.
Good afternoon. My name is Charlie Hinderleiter. I'm the Director of Government Affairs for St. Louis Realtors in St. Louis, Missouri. I taught political science at Western Illinois University, Jefferson College, and Maryville University. And it's been a minute, but at one point I was a student in the We the People program on the other side of the, I'd normally say table, I guess, camera. So I've been where you are. I'm looking forward to our conversation. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Good afternoon, Mark Simons. I'm an attorney here in the state of Nevada. Been practicing law, and as I tell people, I get paid to do exactly what you're doing. So you have a future. Sit and talk and convince people of your ideas. Amazing stuff. So, second day of the Nationals. Good luck. Have fun. Take a deep breath. Look forward to talking to you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kaylee McLean, and my favorite philosopher is Aristotle.
Hi, I'm Micah Bush. My favorite philosopher is John Locke.
Hi, my name is Julia McGoffna. My favorite philosopher is Thomas Hobbes.
My name is Jocelyn Davis. My favorite philosopher is Plato, and we are sophomores from Cottonwood Classical Preparatory School from Albuquerque, New Mexico, and our teacher is Mr. Torres.
All right, and then I'm going to have Mr. Torres turn his camera off. There we go.
Well, welcome to you all. I think you've named all of my favorite philosophers. So if you're ready, we're ready, and let's talk about habeas corpus. Parliament passed the Habeas Corpus Act of 1679. What is habeas corpus, and to what extent, if any, is it essential to the principle of a limited government? How has the Great Writ of habeas corpus evolved in these United States? Under what circumstances, if any, might the writ of habeas corpus place an unreasonable burden on the government? Please begin.
English writer Horace Walpole said, "The act of habeas corpus is the cornerstone of our liberty. Habeas corpus was originally found in English common law before the Magna Carta was written. It protects the rights of the people by prohibiting the government from unreasonably and arbitrarily taking away the freedom of its citizens." We are going to discuss the importance of habeas corpus by saying TTYL, tyranny, transformation, why this is important, and limitation.
T. Tyranny. Economist Adam Smith said the Habeas Corpus Act is also a great security against oppression and sufficiently secures the liberty of the people. In the United States, habeas corpus protects American citizens from a tyrannical government. It does this by preventing our government from abusing the power it has been granted, like the power to detain citizens who openly disagree with the government's policies. Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution states, "The writ of the habeas corpus shall not be suspended unless in case of rebellion or invasion, the public safety may require it." The framers have learned that the experiences under the British rule to prevent their new government from becoming tyrannical. The Declaration of Independence lists grievances accusing the British government of being tyrannical. They say, "For transporting us beyond the seas to be tried for pretended offenses." The king ignored the writ of habeas corpus and imprisoned people who spoke out against him. According to Clause 39 of the Magna Carta, no man shall be arrested or imprisoned except by the lawful judgment of his peers and by the law of the land.
T. Transformation. When the founders lived under the English government, they suffered the injustice of the Star Chamber, which undeniably defied the writ of habeas corpus promised in the Magna Carta. The founders worked to protect against the Star Chamber occurring in America by including the writ of habeas corpus in the Constitution. However, the government did not follow the Constitution all the time. For example, during World War II, Japanese Americans were denied their right to habeas corpus, even though they weren't invading or rebelling against the government. Another example is the debate over COVID restrictions and whether or not punishment should be delivered if restrictions are not followed. Why? Why this is important. American citizens need to understand the extent of their rights. Amendments to the Constitution would not have been made possible without citizens understanding their government, their rights, and how these rights cannot be infringed upon. Amendment 5 of the Constitution states, "No person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law." Habeas corpus is represented here through the protection of Americans' rights. Americans expect their rights to be protected and to not be infringed upon because of habeas corpus.
L, limits. In regards to Lincoln's suspension of habeas corpus, he said, quote, "It was considered a duty to authorize the commanding general in proper cases, according to his discretion, to suspend the privilege of the writ of habeas corpus, or to arrest and detain without resort to the ordinary processes, such individuals as he might deem dangerous to public safety. Habeas corpus can be a burden on the government during times of rebellion or invasion because it prevents the government from imprisoning those who might be a threat. Thomas Jefferson said, if the public safety requires that the government should have a man imprisoned on less probable testimony, and then those in other emergencies, let him be taken and tried, while the necessity continues, only giving him redress against the government for damages. Thomas Jefferson believed that if the government needed to suspend habeas corpus to arrest people, those people shouldn't be arrested. Jefferson very strongly believed that habeas corpus was vital for the protection of the people. There is a fine line between a limited government and a tyrannical government because the government is taking basic rights away from the people to protect the country."
Thomas Jefferson believed that habeas corpus secures every man here, alien or citizen, against everything which is not law, whatever shape it may assume. Habeas corpus protects American citizens' freedom, which has become one of the most important ideas of American society. Understand the importance of habeas corpus through TTYL. We are now open for questions.
All right, let's start with something you mentioned in your paper. You talked about the interaction between habeas corpus and COVID restrictions. Talk to me a little bit more about that. How do you see a connection there?
Well, okay, so let's talk about mask mandates, for example. Habeas corpus is saying that, so we are talking about the specific tie between habeas corpus and, for example, mask regulations. People are being arrested and detained because of masks. However, this has not been passed through legislation, so we're talking about a tie between that specifically.
Adding on to that, we believe that because the mask mandates and COVID restrictions have not been passed through the legislation and have been made actual laws, people cannot be punished for not obeying them because that defies their habeas corpus privilege.
However, there is the argument that brings up the debate over whether or not people should be detained for COVID restrictions because essentially, if a person is not wearing a mask, for example, they could potentially be putting the lives of other people at risk. So that's where the right to life becomes infringed upon, and that's where the debate comes in.
All right, talk to me about the suspension and or enactment of laws that bypass habeas corpus, and if those should be approved, and if they are approved, what are the backup, what are the fallback positions in the Constitution that provide protections?
Well, the suspension of habeas corpus is under rebellion or invasion. So that is kind of the basis for the suspension of habeas corpus. And so if we, for example, look at the January 6th riots, that was something where people are arguing, should there have been a suspension? Was it rebellion? Was it invasion? And so we just can kind of see how the government categorizes specific things. So I personally believe that the January 6th riots were not under habeas corpus. So that's kind of an example under that.
So talk to us a little bit about the historic underpinnings of habeas corpus and why the founders thought it was so imperative to include it in the Constitution. I mean, there is a Bill of Rights. There's the Fifth Amendment, the Sixth Amendment, the Eighth Amendment. So you have those rights enshrined in the addendum, so to speak, the famous addendum to the Constitution. Why do we need habeas corpus if we have a Bill of Rights?
One of the founders, Thomas Jefferson, believed that habeas corpus was vital to the protection of Americans' natural rights. And he thought of this because habeas corpus was outlined in order to protect citizens from unlawful attacks against the king. And he didn't want that to have to be added later after a lot of tyranny has already occurred. So he was trying to set up a protection for something he expected to happen.
To restate what my partner is saying, basically habeas corpus is necessary because it helps protect us against a tyrannical government. So the United States government can suspend habeas corpus under rebellion or invasion, but it guarantees that the government can take action in specific times like that without fully stepping over our rights. So there is a distinct barrier between the government and the people, allowing us to be protected from a tyrannical government.
To answer the Bill of Rights part of your question, Bill of Rights outlines rights that the people have that cannot be taken away. The founders believed that rights were things that could not be taken away by the government unless they were infringed upon. However, they believed that habeas corpus is not a right, it was a privilege, and that habeas corpus can be taken away, but only during specific times, which is why we need the habeas corpus writ of habeas corpus written out in the Constitution, and also still have a Bill of Rights to outline those other rights that people still have.
Along with this, so habeas corpus, when translated from Latin, means show me the body. So it is the protection against like unlawful and indefinite imprisonment without due process of law, which also helps protect us from a tyrannical government.
So habeas, you guys have clearly identified as one key tool to protect the principle of limited government. What in your mind are other critical tools in the US Constitution that are kind of on par with habeas corpus in protecting that key principle of limited government?
I believe one really important one is checks and balances. It has been implemented into our government pretty well, I would say. There has been some mistakes with it, but it does protect the government from abusing their power and taking away our unalienable natural rights.
I definitely agree that with my colleague that the system of checks and balances is another vital, essential part of our government in the Constitution that plays a key role in limiting the government. Like, for example, the president, although very politically powerful, still cannot perform certain duties without the consent of the Senate, for example. So the system of checks and balances, again, goes to limit the government from becoming tyrannical, to limit one branch from becoming too dominant over the other two.
Another very important one is that every single person is provided defense attorneys. We can see how important this is in Gideon v. Wainwright.
Let's talk about President Lincoln's suspension during the Civil War. Do you think that was appropriate, or do you think that that right, he overstepped his ability to as a chief executive officer?
I believe he did overstep his abilities, but I do believe it was the right choice. I think what he should have done is he should have gone to legislator and had them restrict habeas corpus, so that way the same outcome could occur.
Adding on to my colleague, I do agree that while suspending habeas corpus might have been the right thing to do during that time, because it was a case of rebellion, according to the U.S. government, he should have gone through the proper channels using due process of law and suspended the habeas corpus that way.
What impact does the writ of habeas corpus have on state governments? Does it place an unreasonable burden on the states?
I don't believe so. I think this is for a couple of reasons. The first reason being that the state governments do still have a large amount of power and need to be restricted. And I think that is an important restriction that they have. And I think the other reason why writ of habeas corpus is very important is because American citizens aren't always ready for different instances and need a little bit of help. And I think the writ of habeas corpus helps give them that help they need to defend themselves and their natural rights.
Good job. Yay. Okay, now we're going to do some feedback.
All right. Thank you for this conversation today. I wish we had more time. Your TTYL was an ingenious way to organize your prepared statement. This is something where we're hearing this once. We only get to hear it. We don't get to see it. So having something that's clear and organized and kind of telegraphs what you're going to talk about really helps us digest that. And that was just a fantastic way to do that. I thought that was really clever. I'm not sure I buy your argument with the link between COVID mandates and habeas corpus. At the end of the day, habeas is a tool, for someone who's been detained by the authorities. It's a judicial writ to be able to say, hey, are you being detained illegally? And I'm a little fuzzy how that relates to mask mandates, unless somebody's been arrested for that. So yeah, I don't know that I fully got there with you on that. But you guys did a really nice job of showcasing how habeas corpus is important to limited government, how it was really important to the founders and that historical framework. Really glad you mentioned the Star Chamber in your opening presentation. It was today, and I thought that was a great example to use. Thank you.
Yeah, he stole my thunder on the Star Chamber. That's cool, and here's why: because it's such a powerful phrase, and it evokes so much. With 2 words, you engage and embark on this journey of that intensity. So that's what I like. I like how you're able to use words. You want powerful words, you want creative words, intelligent words like that work into your system. We're going to talk about some of the obvious things. Look, did you say you're all sophomores? Yeah, I got to tell you, I'm amazingly impressed with your grasp of the subject matter, but more importantly, with your ability to communicate in this forum on a very intellectual level. And I expect that you guys continue with your civic engagement and become the next leaders and sit on this side of the table the next time. Well, not next time. You get a few years under your belt and then come back and do it. But everybody participated. Everybody gave cogent comments. You had the Magna Carta tied in, which we always love to hear that, because there's so much foundational basis that people claim was tied to that. Very well done. Thank you very much. I enjoyed it.
Well, I think my colleagues have said it all. Great job. Thanks so much. And you loved TTYL and your imagery. You communicated really well. And the only sad part is we didn't have more time to keep discussing your ideas. So thanks so much. It was great to meet you and listen to you, and wish you best. Congratulations to your teacher for preparing you so well. And we wish you a lot of luck in the competition. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you,
All
guys.
right. Turn the recording